Hello, everyone. Today, I learnt a very important lesson about being responsible. When the Fat Controller made James and me responsible for taking everyone to the Dryaw football match, he asked us to work together. But then, we got into a silly argument over which team was the best, the Reds or the Blues. James and I were so busy hurrying to the match, we forgot about the important jobs the Fat Controller had given us. Then there was trouble. The football match hadn't started. James hadn't picked up the Barrow team, and I hadn't picked up the referee. Luckily, Percy saved the day. He brought both the team and the referee to the football ground. James and I realized the important thing wasn't which team was best, it was making sure everyone got to the match on time. That's why, when you're given a job to do, it's important to take responsibility for doing it properly. Hello, everyone. Today, I learned a very important lesson about how being little doesn't mean you can't do big things. When Skiff heard there was a bad storm coming, he wanted to do his part and make sure everyone was safe. But Duck told him only big engines could help in the storm. Joe had anchored Skiff on the harbour front, but the wind was so strong, it blew Skiff's sail loose. Then his anchor rope snapped. The wind pushed Skiff down the track and onto a fallen tree. Skiff was trapped. Then there was more trouble. Skiff saw Duck and Oliver coming down the tracks. He needed to warn them about the tree, or there would be a terrible accident. Skiff didn't give up and managed to pull his sail free. Duck and Oliver saw him and stopped just in time. Skiff had saved them. So remember, just because you're small doesn't mean you can't do big things. Hello, everyone. Today, I learnt a very important lesson about making sure you tell someone when you're going somewhere. When Hero had an accident and needed new parts, I decided to help find him some. I thought if I went back to the woods where I first met Hero, I may find some of his old parts. But I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Then there was trouble. The old rails had given way, and I got stuck in the mud, and no one knew where I was to come and help me. I tried to call for help, but no one could hear me. Luckily, Harold saw my steam, and soon my friends came to rescue me. I realized that because I hadn't told anyone where I was going, no one knew where I was. I was very lucky that Harold saw me. That's why it's always important to tell someone where you are going. Hello, everyone. Today, I learned a very important lesson about how you don't have to like the same things to be friends. The first time Philip met Toby, he was really excited. Philip thought Toby was a box cab like him. And because he looked like Toby, Philip was sure Toby would be his friend and would love doing all the same things he did. Philip challenged Toby to a race, but Toby didn't want to race. He didn't like racing, and this made him think Toby didn't like him. I told Philip that just because Toby didn't like to race, that didn't mean they couldn't be friends. I told him that Toby liked traveling slowly and quietly through the countryside. Philip thought he might like that too, and he did. Well, sort of. That's why you don't have to like the same things to be friends. Hello, everyone. Today, I learned a very important lesson about not sulking. Everyone knows that James likes to be the center of attention. One day, he was so busy showing off, he didn't do his job properly, and his passengers complained. The Fat Controller was angry with James and gave him the job of pulling rubbish trucks. But James wanted to pull passenger carriages, not rubbish trucks, so he began to sulk. We all thought James's sulky face was funny. So we started to pull funny faces too. James realized that sulking hadn't helped and that he couldn't always do what he wanted. It was more important to be really useful. James had changed his attitude, and even though he was pulling freight, he began to enjoy himself. And that's why, even if you have to do something you don't want to do, you shouldn't sulk. Hello, everyone! Today, I learned a very important lesson about trying to do too much at once. When the Fat Controller asked me and Samson to take some trucks to the docks, Samson was determined to show everyone how clever he was. The trucks were heavy, so I decided to take a few at a time. But silly Samson tried to take all his trucks in one go. On the way back to get the rest of my trucks, I found Samson stuck at the bottom of Gordon's hill. His trucks were just too heavy to pull. Paxton helped me to push Samson over the hill. But now Samson was so late, he wouldn't stop to let me be uncoupled. When we finally reached the docks, the Fat Controller wasn't happy. He told Samson that by trying to pull too many trucks in one go, he had caused confusion and delay. That's why it's important not to do too much at once. Hello, everyone! Today, I learned a very important lesson about listening to good advice. When James was asked to take the mayor and the Fat Controller to a ball, he wanted to look his best. But first, James had to finish his other jobs. That made him dirty. So James went to the washdown to get clean. Then, James found a little scratch on his paintwork. So he rushed to the steamworks to be repainted. Victor warned James his new paint wouldn't dry in time for James to do his special job. But James didn't take Victor's advice. Out on the tracks, dirt and leaves stuck to James's wet paint. Now James really did need repainting. And Edward got to take the mayor and the Fat Controller to the ball. If James had listened to Victor's advice, he would have got to do the special job. And that's why you should always listen to good advice. Hello, everyone! Today, I learned a very important lesson about not playing rough and tough. Diesel is often mean to other engines and acts rough and tough to impress his friends. But one day, I found Diesel talking kindly and gently to some fluffy ducklings. Diesel was so embarrassed. He was worried his friends wouldn't like him if they thought he was a big softy. So, I agreed not to tell anyone about the ducklings, as long as Diesel promised to be kind to the other engines. But it wasn't long before Diesel was being rough and tough again. So, I took Ari and Bert to see Diesel's ducklings. Ari and Bert loved the ducklings, and they still liked Diesel, even when he was being kind. Diesel learned his friends would like him even if he wasn't rough and tough.